All right, today we're going to go over a few basic just introduction to web design notes. It's a few things you need to know before you start designing web pages. Um, First thing, you got to design for a computer medium. When you are reading a computer screen, you got to remember it's not a printed page. It's not like reading a book. The readability changes depending on the color, layout, and format, and different browser screens and displays can change how a page looks. If you are reading text on a piece of paper or in a book, magazine, or whatever, you normally would read that from left to right. Okay, if you're reading just written words on a sheet of paper, you look from left to right. When you look on a computer screen, however, um, users' eyes scan in a more clockwise pattern. They look in circles. So they're not necessarily reading from left to right whenever you are looking at a web page. So that's one thing you got to keep in mind whenever you go to design your pages. How will users read or view your page? And it says if a page uses a lot of text, the user will read in a more traditional left to right manner. If a page has more graphical elements, the user is more likely to take in the whole page and look at it in a more circular fashion. Now, on this graphic you see right here where it says accepted relative areas of importance, this is a pretty common and general layout you'll see on a lot of websites, and they've numbered those in the in the order of most importance to least. The most important part of the page on this one right here is the one that's marked with a number 1 right there in the middle. The heading at the top of the page would be a number 2, and then number 3 is the space over here to the right. 4 is at the bottom, and 5 is generally would be like a link bar or something like that on the left. If you look at my web page, the third area over there is kind of blank. I keep that one blank just to increase the white space on my pages. Now, a few questions to ask yourself. What is the purpose of my website? Why does it exist? Who is my main audience? Those are the main people that you want to read your website. And who is your secondary audience? And just to give you an example, for my website, my main audience is the students that take my class. Secondary audience might be their parents or other teachers. And then what information do I want to present? Those are all 4 very important questions you have to ask yourself whenever you are designing a website. Step two is to plan your site's hierarchy. How are your pages linked together? How many links will you have exactly, and where does the user go next? If you can answer those 3 questions successfully, then you'll be able to plan your hierarchy pretty well. A structure that is more wide than deep. You see right there, you in this class, you will create a storyboard for most of your websites, and they'll look kind of similar to this. The main page could be considered like the home page, and each different page or each block underneath in that graphic could be considered like a different page in the website. But that one shows you 3 layers: the main layer, which is the home page, your sub pages that go below there, and then anything that would come down here would be an example of the content that was on each page. Now this one right here is a structure that's more deep than wide. In this case, you've got your main home page, and then they have a section for work and just about themselves. Under work, they might have their classes and give samples of their works, and under the stuff about themselves, they might tell what they like to do for fun, and they might tell about what their family life is like. Now, designing your own content. And step 3 says the do's of good web design. It says name files consistently and logically. Keep a consistent look and feel. Use colors that are high in contrast, and design for low bandwidth. When you hear that term design for low bandwidth, that means that for whatever reason, maybe things don't load very fast on somebody else's computer, whether it's their network or the type of computer they're using. If you design for low bandwidth, then everybody should be able to load your website fairly easily. More do's. Use active white space. And white space does not always have to be the color white. It can be different colors. Design for interaction. You want people to be able to interact with you on your website. Use hypertext linking effectively, and design for accessibility, which is what we have talked about earlier this semester. Step 4, things to avoid, aka the don'ts. It says don't overuse media. Don't make users scroll too much. Don't flood pages with content, and don't choose colors or images that make the page hard to read. All those things can make your website kind of distracting and not very fun to visit. Other don'ts: don't forget to title everything, that's images and pages both, and don't assume that your new users know where to go. And the big one on there: don't use frames, which we will not learn in class. When you are getting started, the first thing you should do after you've planned your website out is select a design tool or program. In our class at school, we start out using Notepad, but there's all sorts of different programs out there for you. Determine your page layout. Determine how the information is going to be organized on the page. Reread assignment sheet and rubrics, and consider how best to represent you. And that is the end.